Hello again, ladies and gentlemen. So after that horribly scripted intro, we are back with part 1 of the portfolio series featuring this lovely building web. Just a quick reminder, I did not manage to find the floor plans or with measurements or anything similar, so everything I did here I did on instinct, and yeah, just tried to get it as close as possible to the real thing. In the beginning, I tried to form a basic structure resembling the one on our image here. So the first tool in SketchUp that I use here is the rectangle tool, which allows me simply to form a rectangle shape so I don't have to draw 4 separate lines and connect them. Just press R on your keyboard and enter the values you want. The values will be displayed in the bottom right hand corner, and make sure to separate your width and length with a semicolon. When using the Move tool, you can make a copy of an object just by clicking Ctrl on your keyboard. Next up, I use the Push-Pull tool. Press P on your keyboard, the letter P, and you'll get the ability to add, in this case, height to your object. Essentially, you can use it to pull any face in any of the 3 main directions. Here I just made a new rectangle shape with the same width and length and made it a group. First double click on your new rectangle and then right click and select make group. I do recommend this whenever you make a new kind of shape because it simply makes the workflow easier. As far as shortcuts go, that part you can personalize yourself. I didn't. You can do that for sure for yourself, but the default ones are really basic, and like you use the middle mouse button to rotate around the object, you use it with shift to pan, you use it with you use M for the move tool, P for push pull, L for line, and stuff like that. So they're very basic. Usually it's just the first letter of the name of the tool, and that's the shortcut. The offset tool does exactly what it says. It offsets the edges of the object in or out, depending on what you need, in all 4 directions equally. Very handy when you need the measurements to be the same on all sides, useful for windows, doors, or I don't know. Every time you do something with a certain tool in SketchUp, more often than not, you can enter the values directly. Keep in mind your values depend on the mode you open the program in, being centimeters, meters, feet, etc. If you need something in centimeters and you're already in another mode, just write the shortcut like CM at the end and you're all set. How to know when certain objects are in a group? Well, when you click on the face, it selects the whole group, and when you double click it, it sort of isolates that object and makes everything else not inside that group lighter and bland, I'd say. Now, whenever you close an object, meaning you draw a rectangle and there are no breaks in the lines, everything is connected, you will get a new face. Also, if you create a new face on an already existing face, it will segment that face and divide it into 2 close parts, when in the same group, that is. Keep that in mind, but the more you model stuff, the more you'll get the hang of the mechanics. That's why I'm just overviewing this as I go along, because I do think that people in general learn better when they figure it out themselves. Two-point perspective. This straightens out our camera view and fixes the vertices and overall gives us a better viewing angle. This step is a must in your renderings or images if you're doing basic stuff. Obviously, it's not a must in every case, but more often than not, you should do this step. In two-point perspective, you can only pan. So when you have this icon right here, it means you only move your camera up, down, and left and right. Eye height just does pretty much that. You write the value at which the eyes will be and it lifts the viewport to that height. The standard for this is, I'd say, 180 centimeters, but then again, I could be wrong, and it's best for you to experiment with this a bit on your own. As soon as you rotate your model, you have to select the two-point perspective option again because the rotation will cancel it out. Since we're going to export this to 3ds anyway, we just have to get this sort of right. Cameras in 3ds are much better and have far more options to twinkle around with than cameras in SketchUp, but more on the details when we get there. Field of view gives us the total angular extent that can be viewed on a screen at once. I hope you got that. Great. In more simple terms, it just extends or shortens your image lengths, meaning you get more depth, but your image is going to look distorted. Experiment and figure out which works best for your project. If you play video games like me, you should know how this works. The higher the value of the FOV, the harder it is to get headshots because the heads actually shrink. Now what I'm doing here is taking a screenshot just to get the general idea of the proportions of my building compared to the one on the image. Scene saving. Once you're happy with the FOV, angle, and overall camera position, you can save your view and always come back to it. Navigate to the default tray on the right side of the screen, select Scenes and press plus. This allows you to come back to your scene at any time just by double-clicking on. Now I begin to model the wall in the background. It was quite simple, it just takes a bit of time since you can't run here, you have to walk. I didn't really need to know how long it actually is, I just needed to get the height right and of course the little holes in it as well. So the way I did it here, I just drew two lines that are perpendicular to the edges of the building and then just connected them at a certain distance with two lines that are parallel to the building and that formed a rectangle, which later on I pulled up and got a wall. Every time you delete a face in a closed object, you can get it back just by connecting 2 points with the line tool. So when making these holes, I needed them all to be on the same height. To do this, I needed to move the circles at the same height, and I did that by selecting the Move tool, and with the arrow key selected my desired axis. Different arrows equal different axes. Also, when moving a certain cutout on a face, make sure to press Ctrl to copy it. Once you've placed your copy, you can enter a specific number and it will repeat that move command with the same length or height that number of times. I use that here so I could get a bigger number of these holes without actually doing them one by one. When moving, you can move edges to edges. What I mean by that is when you grab the edge of a group, just drag it to the intersection point of where you want to put it, and it will place it perfectly. Handy for when you need to place assets in a corner or something similar. When pushing or pulling a certain length, you can either select the face and then enter a certain value, like always, or you can just hover to the desired length as I did here. I selected the face and hovered to the end of the wall to create a hole that goes straight through it. So this part is sped up because I just did the same thing a bunch of times. So I made every individual circle and pushed them all back to get the holes. All the icons you see in the top part of the screen, those are just various plugins that I downloaded in a pack because I didn't want to search for the individual ones myself. Later it gets even more chaotic because I found another pack with, I don't know, like 70 plus plugins. I just wanted to try it out. I don't recommend it. Download plugins as you go along because you definitely don't need so much plugins. But yeah, don't worry about it. I will explain everything as I as we progress with this series, and you'll be informed about everything, so just don't worry about it. Tape measurement tool helps us measure our everything basically. Just be careful to select the directions with the arrow keys, or you will measure it from point to point, which can often lead to incorrect measurements. How to know when the directions are selected? The line will change colors. Simple as that. Now after I was satisfied with the wall in the back, I moved to the windows. First I made cutouts in the face for them, and then I modeled them. The modeling part you'll see, I think, in part 2 and part 3, I'm not really sure. Everything that I'm doing here, I'm doing with the most basic tools that you get as soon as you install SketchUp. Your toolbar might not look the same as mine, but all the essentials to model this, what I'm doing right now, will be there. Later we'll work more with the plugins, but I'll explain them in depth more when we get there. Here I use the rotate tool, which allows you to rotate your selection in any direction. The same applies here as it does to the move tool. If you want to rotate along a certain axis or plane, use the arrow keys. Be careful where you click on your face to rotate though, as it will rotate along that point, meaning that point will be the center of rotation. At this point, I wanted to try out this new plugin, the name you can see on the screen, which allows you to enter the values you want and it will create stairs for you. This didn't turn out to be a good idea for this image because they didn't have the type of stairs that I needed. Also, I tried modeling their stairs, the one they make, the one the plugin makes, to look like the ones that I need, but it was just too complicated. I did experiment with this quite a bit, but to no avail. And since you can't see the individual steps anyway, I figured you don't even need to model them. Just model the wall/railing and you're all set. Here I turned on shadows just to get a better looking test render. I recommend turning this off, however, during modeling phases because it does tend to slow down your SketchUp quite a bit, especially if you're working with larger and more complicated scenes. That was it for part 1 of the series. I went over briefly some of the basics, and if you think I missed anything, be sure to let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, leave a like if you liked the video, a dislike if you didn't, and I hope to see you all in the next part. Stay safe and peace.